Welcome, Vivian Acquah, to the Empathy Edge podcast. I have been wanting to have you on this show for a really long time. We've been orbiting each other on social media. It seems like forever, but I know it hasn't
Yeah.
been. And welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Maria, for having me. And it's such an honor to be here and to having this conversation in these times.
Oh my gosh, we need to. And you
Yeah.
are, as we talked about, we heard in your bio just now, you're a respected DEI executive. You've worked for some really big brands who
Mhm.
understand the power and the ROI of DEI. And that is
Definitely.
the narrative and the story we are trying to continue to get out there and help people understand that DEI is not about excluding groups. It's actually about including more groups. So,
Making
um,
the table bigger. Yeah.
yeah. So let's start before we get into our conversation around DEI as a risk management strategy,
hmm
as something that if you don't think about it, it can cost you financially. Before we get into all of
hmm
that good stuff, just really quickly, can you tell us how you got into this work? Kind of what's your story? Why are you so passionate about this?
I'm passionate because of the fact that I'm in the Netherlands, born and raised, Ghanaian woman, and I have encountered different exclusion, different ways of being excluded. But the one that was a tipping point was me telling my then managers that I was pregnant, 5 weeks. Didn't say it to my family or friends. I
Mhm.
told my managers first, and the reception of my news was very poor. I wasn't met with empathy. And for me personally, it felt like I cheated on them by becoming pregnant. And that's
Wow.
also when the bullying started. So it could have impacted my child because my it impacted my well-being at the time. And luckily I had a midwife who warned me like, what are you doing? And this is not the road that you want to be on because it's very stressful working under such a high pressure and also dealing with being bullied. And I
Hmm.
made a decision to go on an early maternity leave, which is possible in the Netherlands.
Hmm.
And once the moment that my child was born, that was when I realized I need to do something for him. So I need to work on creating a virtual soil for inclusion so that my child and his generation can reap the benefits from him. Orlando is now 11, so I'm very lucky and happy to say that he wasn't impacted by it, but I look into his eyes every day and see the reason why
Hmm.
I'm advocating for this. And it's not an easy journey, especially at the moment right now. It's not an easy journey,
Hmm.
but still, he's the reason why I'm doing this work.
I love it. Well, I empathize with you. My son is about to turn 11 next month. And that is actually how I got started in all this empathy
Yeah,
work was I was really frustrated by the models of leadership he was seeing in the world
yeah.
when he was two and a half. And
hmm
that drives my work as well is we've got to
Yeah.
help people understand that empathetic leadership is
Mm,
the way to go. And not just
exactly.
because it's the right thing to do, but it actually has really
hmm
great ROI for your business. So
Exactly.
I'm trying to make the
Exactly.
business case for leaders to say, hey, this isn't what you think it is. It's not being
hmm
weak. It's not being submissive. You can actually be confidently empathetic and you can make really tough business decisions, but do it with
Definitely.
compassion and humanity and empathy.
Yeah.
So we are simpatico. I love it. And your son,
Yeah.
I love it. We'll have to, maybe we'll connect our
Well,
sons
they
someday.
are from
Yeah.
the same birth year, right? So they're the same age
I know.
almost.
I
And it's just like,
know.
wow, this is serendipity moment here. We
It
didn't know this, people. We didn't know this.
We didn't know this before we started recording. So
Yeah.
you and I talked, and we've had a lot
Mhm.
of different DEI experts on this show over the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, talking about different aspects of DEI, the impact to the business, the benefits to the business, the downsides of
hmm
ignoring it, which
hmm
is something that I'm really trying to get out there to leaders and organizations right now. So before we get into that, I would like you to level set us of this conversation and tell us what your definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives or philosophy from a business perspective. What is the definition of that?
I'll make it very simple for those of you who are listening to me and don't know the way that I talk. I always make it simple as your business, your organization is creating the best carrot cake, and you want the different stakeholders that you collaborate with, you want them to walk away with the best taste of that particular carrot cake, right? So whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your employees, whether it's your shareholders, you want people to walk away that they are winning and that they have tasted the best carrot cake ever. So when it comes to diversity, it's the different ingredients that people that that the different ingredients your company has to offer. So the employees having the different skill sets that they have, but also the different backgrounds, the unique and the diverse thoughts that they have to amplify your business. Then comes equity part. That's when you level up your ingredients. So you give the people the different tools that they need so that they can be the best person or can be the best employee that they add. So let's say in a the best one of the best carrot cakes that I have had is a cheesecake carrot cake,
Oh, yum.
where somebody has the element of the cheesecake, or somebody has the element of maybe rum and raisins, right? Or somebody has the elements of the carrot, right? Everybody shines in within their own category because of that, because they are given particular tools for them to shine. So it's
Hmm.
not equity, it's not equality, but it's equity, giving everybody the individual too. So to shine a light on myself, I'm neurodivergent, I'm dyslexic, and for me personally, if I have to read, some of these scientific long texts, I need a text to speech tool to be able to consume the information. But also when I read books, I accompany it with audiobooks so that I can consume the information, can read fast, because otherwise the words will become blurry again. And then the inclusion part is the best part, because now that you have the cake batter, you don't have the definite cake, right? And some people like cake batter. I'm not one of them, but let's go on towards the inclusion. The inclusion is where, together with the team, you set the right temperature. So oftentimes of course, the leaders ignite the fire of the oven, but however, the oven is set, the right temperature is set together with the people, because my definition of inclusion may differ from your definition of inclusion and may differ from somebody else within the team member. So how do we demystify that? We have a conversation about what's needed for you to be part of this team. How can we help you? How can I, as a leader, support you to thrive in the workplace? I don't know where things got lost in translation,
I
but
don't know.
oftentimes when I come in, there is a relationship, a team building that needs to be done for people to disclose what they want and how they feel included and what they need to feel psychologically safe. And if we
Hmm.
don't have those conversations or those dialogues with each other, then how can we collaborate effectively?
Hmm.
How can we connect with each other on an empathetic level as well?
Right. This is the one of the best definitions of DEI I've ever heard. I love this carrot cake analogy. I can't wait for my listeners to hear this. I love this idea because when we look at the individual words and what they mean,
Mm,
I don't think anyone can argue that those are good
hmm.
things to
Yeah.
acknowledge and to have. But what's happened is that term DEI has been
It's been
politicized.
villainized.
It's been
It's
branded
been
as a
villainized.
as a as a
Yeah.
thing that threatens,
Hmm.
let's be real, cisgender white males in the
Hmm.
workplace. And I
Yeah.
love the folks that I've had on this show. And what I try to talk about too is that when you have an organization committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, that's good for you too, Mr. White Male.
It,
Like you get to feel
it is.
included, you get to have equity, you get to have opportunity. It's
Yeah.
not at the expense of excluding you, it's to bring everyone in under the same tent.
It is. However, sometimes the way things are narrated, right? I don't know what other people are saying, but I did have different conversation with white men who felt like they were being excluded or they were being dismissed or they were being not being able part of the inclusion. And
Hmm.
what I try to say is we are expanding the table so that different people with insights can sit at the table and have conversations where things are going to be discussed about them, right? Why not include them? Why not talk about them? Because you don't have my lived experience. I don't have your lived experience. But yet again, we are here together to talk about empathy, but also talk about inclusion from different angles. Because why? It's a win-win for all stakeholders.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's how I feel. That's how I
Yeah.
feel. And I'm not dismissing what other people are doing at the moment right now when it comes to, okay, we are going to narrate everything that's for us. I am, however, want to amplify like the way that I interpret inclusion and the way that I interpret diversity, equity, and inclusion is creating space so that different people can thrive, because in the past, society has
Hmm.
excluded people. Look at AI, for instance. Look at the way some people are not being included. Even with the images creation, some people are not being
Hmm.
included.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for making that distinction.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot on this show about the fact that, data and research show us that when you
Yeah.
have a diverse, inclusive team or workforce, you end up
Mm-hmm.
making better business decisions because you have
True.
the ability for there to be people that see things differently and
Mm-hmm.
may recognize risks that you can't see
Yeah.
or discover opportunities that you've overlooked. So,
Especially that part, especially that part. And I
yeah,
wanna I
say
wanna
more about
highlight,
that.
for instance, Rihanna. She is an entrepreneur, or she's known as the musical artist, but the way that Rihanna has expanded her reach within the fashion industry, but also in the makeup industry, where now Rihanna is a household brand for a lot of people worldwide. The
Hmm.
way she tapped into diversity, as in diverse body sizes, providing clothes for diverse body sizes and making it sexy as well, but also makeup. Which brand in worldwide has all the shades, have the majority of the shades of the world? And she was one of the few that has them.
Yeah. And that's a huge
That's
market opportunity for
inspiration.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
So talk to us about, I know one of the things that caught my eye where I finally was like, I've got to get you on now, really got to get you on, was you did a post around DEI as risk management.
Hmm.
Tell us about that. How is creating a culture committed to DEI a form of risk management?
Well, I wrote that post because it speaks to the language of a lot of leaders, right? The majority of the leaders don't want risk to creep into their business, because every time that risk creeps into their business or their organization, it means that they have to invest in a lot of legal costs, or maybe have to invest in a lawsuit, or maybe pay out in the person or the plaintiff, right? And I want to address it from their angle and see as when your company doesn't have a fire alarm, so when your company doesn't have DEI active, then that means that the moment that a match hits your company is on fire without you even knowing. Whilst diversity, equity, and inclusion done right, not a performative way, but done right, done in a way that benefits everybody within the organization, you have something in place to prevent lawsuits. You have something in place to attract talent. You have something in place to become a better place to work, right? You have something in place to retain talent, to retain knowledge. And even when the knowledge, or even when the person is going to a different job within the company, it's still a win, because now you don't have to spend a lot of time on training. You don't have to onboard that person and to learn more about the companies and the hows and the whats and the whys. That person is already a knowledge bank and is
Right.
expanding their knowledge by going to a different company. But yet, what I see happening now with the companies that are walking away, they are doing a lot of short-term decisions
Hmm.
that are going to impact them on the longer run. Because
Hmm.
what I see happening now is the upcoming 3.5 years or 4 years, it's a business case of what to do or what not to do.
Hmm.
Period.
Yeah. What do you believe are the financial costs of ignoring DEI right now?
In the longer run, fear stifles. And for people that are working in a company that doesn't have an authentic DEI policy or
Hmm.
practices, initiatives in place, you would see that they will not work with any pleasure. So the employee engagement will go down, more sick leaves as well, but also they are not loyal to your company, or they won't go the extra mile
Hmm.
towards your company, right? And it
Yeah.
also creates a way in for them not to stay longer within the company at the moment. Now, a lot of people are complaining about Gen Z and all the different generations, but what about the loyalty the other way around?
Uh-huh.
How are you going to show your employees the love whilst you are seeking love from your employees as well? Or you want your employees to commit love to you as well? And
Right.
that is as an organization, right? Don't get me the wrong way. This is as an organization. And oftentimes there is a discrepancy of, you show your loyalty to me because I pay you. Those days are over. This is
Right.
not the time, given the fact that there are remote jobs. People can become an entrepreneur or set up their own businesses, right? And
Yeah.
with everything that is in place right now, with all the technology that is in place, not everybody's dependent on working for a corporate. Not
Hmm.
everybody's dependent on working for the same company anymore. And that means
Yeah.
that from time to time they will switch. And what does that mean for the longevity of your organization or your department?
Yeah.
Because when you do that tango with, let's say, somebody leaving your department, that means more strain on the people that are existing there. And if that person who leaves is let's say, a cheerleader or somebody who's very social, it can also, the energy can, that spark can also touch other people to walk away from that as well. And
Right.
what I see now happening is leadership going towards traditional leadership that should be extinct as the dinosaurs are
A
extinct.
100%. I always talk about the leadership paradigm has changed,
Mm,
and the old paradigm is dying because we
it's
recognize that
bad.
partnering with versus powering
Yeah.
over gets you better,
Mm,
stronger, longer term results.
yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, I've had military leaders on this show who say there
Mhm.
is a place for command and control, but it's in the heat of battle. It's
Yeah.
not every
Yeah.
day. What they
Yeah.
do is they
Yeah.
actually lean into empathy because you have to be able to convince, in a military setting, someone to
Hmm.
give their life for you.
Exactly.
That's the incent. How are you going to
Hmm.
incent someone to lay down their life for you? You
Yeah.
do that through empathy. You do that through creating an environment of trust where you understand
Hmm.
that individual and what motivates them.
Yeah.
It's not the long-term play is not command and control. That's just when it's specifically and tactically needed
Mhm.
in the heat of
And the
the
workplace
crisis.
should not
Yeah.
be a battlefield. The
No,
workplace
it
should
shouldn't.
never be a battlefield unless you're literally working for the military or for the Navy. That's a different occasion. But the
Exactly.
workplace was never meant to
Right.
be a battlefield and to be run in a way that it's demeaning, it's dehumanizing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also we know that the corporate structures of today were based on models from the military. That is how
Yeah,
we created structures and hierarchies within
yeah,
commerce, within corporate
yeah.
America. So, but yeah, we've got to, it's evolved. And
Mhm.
I always say this on the show, I have some empathy for the leaders who are like, wait, I've been doing this for 30 and 40 years, and that's how I got to be successful. And now all of a sudden you're
True.
telling me the rules are changing?
True.
Yeah, kinda. So, hopefully people like you, people like me are helping support those leaders in making the transition, but it doesn't mean the transition's going away.
Think of it, and this is where I'll step in into my mother role, right? As in a mom, our
Uh-huh.
kids don't come with manuals. Every
Mm-mm.
year, they change the narrative, they change the guidelines, where you have to apply and tweak and apply your growth mindset and tweak the guidelines a little bit for what's applicable for that particular year. My
Uh-huh.
son is now a teenager, and different rules, different challenges apply to current day. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if I would use the old manuscript the way that I used it when he was a baby,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to work. And that's also something that I want to say, I want to give back to the leaders that think about if you have a child or your uncle or aunt or you have a child nearby, think about the way that you connect with that child at a different age and the way that they become older. And think then also about your employees. Employees go through different phases in life. And what I'm trying to say is support them through those different phases in life, but also create that psychological safety. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be done when you activate your empathy muscles and also
Mm-hmm.
spread it, share it with other people so that they
Yeah.
can learn to become empathetic self leaders as well.
Yeah. I always tell leaders I work with that empathy is the fuel for helping your DEI initiatives take root so that you can
Yeah.
actually experience the benefits that we're talking about here,
Hmm.
the benefits on the
Yeah.
bottom line. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, without the empathy and the understanding of being willing and able to see someone else's point of view, you don't
Hmm.
harness the value of the diverse viewpoints. You just all disagree with each other, right? And you all act like I don't understand I don't understand that person. But you mentioned something earlier that I didn't want to lose sight of, and it's this idea of, we were talking about it earlier and we got into sort of the military discussion, but this idea of understanding what the incentive is for your
Mm.
employees and understanding based on their differences, there's going to
Yeah.
be different motivators. There's going to be different incentives. And I couldn't help but remember, and I want to put this in the show notes, the book, the fabulous book, Drive by Daniel
Mhm.
Pink, which
Yeah.
is all about the surprising truth. I think it's the subtitle, the surprising truth of what motivates us.
Yeah.
And it's about
Yeah. Our
understanding
purpose.
that what motivates you might not
Hmm.
motivate somebody else. So I think you were
Exactly.
mentioning earlier for some bosses, they think, well, it's motivating enough that I'm paying you a paycheck. That's
Hmm.
not how everyone's wired. Not that they don't
No.
want to get paid, but they are more motivated in some cases by recognition or inclusion or more responsibility.
Flexibility.
Right,
Remote
accessibility, all of
working.
these things. So it's about being a leader who
Yeah.
can find that particular motivator for that employee and
Hmm.
that group of employees and then
Definitely.
unlock their potential, unlock their motivation to do more for the organization.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was also thinking about, I think it's Beverly. I don't know her last name anymore, but help them grow or watch them go. There is a book about that talks about whether are you going to connect with them and are you going to unlock their potential or watch them go.
Yeah.
This day and age in Europe, and I know in the US as well, with the fact that with everything happening with the colleges and also universities, but also there are challenges with funding and with grants for the next generation. Whereas I'm wondering how are they going to find the talent if they're not going to create space for that talent to grow?
Hmm.
And that is going to be an interesting business case in the upcoming 5 to 10 years, as in where are we going to find the talent? Because we are dismissing people when they are old, we are dismissing people when they are young, we are dismissing people when they have a different cultural background, we are dismissing people who might be neurodivergent or who have something different, like my hair is different, or maybe a different gender identity as well. And I'm just like, aren't these all people who are talented and can add value to your company by sharing different insights and also mitigating risk? Because the fact that you are maybe not aware of how the Black community is collaborating, for instance, at the moment right now, where Target is suffering from what's happening at the moment right now. But
Hmm.
also another example is John Deere last year or previous years, they walked away from DEI. And recently their shareholders said, well, no, 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 because it's good for our money. So let's activate it this year, right now. It says something that seven
Wow.
out of the eight companies are still activating their inclusion initiatives. Maybe they are rebranding it because they don't want to be targeted by certain people or certain
Exactly.
governments.
Yeah.
But in the long end, they want inclusion, and inclusion means for all. Inclusion
Hmm.
means everybody gets something out of it or gets to benefit from the
Hmm.
success of the company and for the success, the individual success, right? So why are we focusing only on one out of the eight companies that are walking away because of certain pressure from outside? It's not fair.
Right, right. Well, that's the thing is we need to shine a light on the companies like the
Yeah,
Costco's who are like, no, we actually
yeah,
understand this is good for our business to operate this
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
shining a light, shining a light.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of our last piece of our conversation that I'm so intrigued is that you have seen examples of using virtual reality to unlock
Hmm.
empathy in people and in leaders. What the heck is going on? Tell us all about that.
Well, virtual reality is a tool to expand your lenses in a different way, right? Because there are so many movies about discrimination. There are so many books and so many podcasts and so many documents about what it is to deal with discrimination or what the impact might be. But until you have walked a mile in my shoes, literally can walk a mile shoes, then you will understand my impact will impact you as well as a
Hmm.
leader. And with the virtual reality, what we do is we use realistic scenarios where we connect people with experiences that happen in the workplace, so as exclusion, microaggression, or good intention, bad impact, so that they can get a sense out of what's happening and why is it important for me as a leader, for a self leader, to understand that I am accountable. I have to play an accountability part in this to create space where it's psychological safe, but also understand that when I step on somebody's toes, I'm not the one who should be offended, but I should listen. I should activate empathy and understand that I hurt them. I
Mm-hmm.
might also feel hurt by them, telling me that I hurt them, but I
Mm-hmm.
hurt them, and create space to say sorry, or create space to be supportive. Because oftentimes we sit at the sidelines just because we know Peter, or we know Yan, or we know Susan, or we know Cinderella. We dismiss whatever it is that they have done because we personally know that person and cannot imagine that that person can do something that can harm another human being.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, we are human. I can
Mm-hmm.
harm people. You can harm people. Everybody can harm people.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that you understand that this is the impact when you lose somebody because
Mm-hmm.
of innocent workplace behavior or incivility, or you lose somebody because of unconscious bias, which can be mitigated,
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of value can be generated as well. So a lot of aha moments come close, but also it's a way to immediately tap into people, their intrinsic motivation. Whilst if I wouldn't use it, it would
Uh-huh.
take so much longer to tap into that
Are you
part.
actually using it with clients right now?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
what is explain the experience to us? Is it a
yeah,
scenario? Are they wearing goggles? Like
yeah.
how does it work?
Yeah, so first of all, we start with how do you say it? Aligning everybody with the same terminology, right? So I'll bring in my carrot cake analogy in, but I'll also share other aspects of what's the risk when DEI is not active, right? So I expand my presentation with the risk and how can we mitigate that risk. Then they'll go through a scenario. One of the scenarios we have is power and privilege, and also combined with a Me Too scenario where people can put the goggles. Half of the group will put on the goggles, and half of the group will be an observer because there's a lot happening on nonverbal communication, and I want
Right.
people also to be attentive to what they see, how they see their colleague respond, and what are the little things that you can respond to, even though somebody has not shared anything with you, right?
Right.
So they put on the goggles, they go through that experience, and that experience, so let's say within one experience, I've counted like 30 different things that are happening that are connected to exclusion.
Uh-huh.
And for some people, it's confronting themselves with bias, unconscious bias, without me playing a role into that particular scenario because they do it to themselves.
Right.
And it's an eye opener. It's like
Yeah.
within 5 minutes, they see a lot, they experience a lot, but the magic doesn't end there because they went through, everybody will go through the same scenario, and everybody will do a debrief and understand that, but I saw something different. No, I experienced something different, or this connects me to my past, or this
Uh-huh.
connects me to my loved one, or this connects me to my child who's going through that at the moment right now, where I'm able to tap into people, their intrinsic motivation, and also connect it with what can we do better, or what can you do better? Because now that you have succeeded, now that you've
Right.
experienced the impact, what can you do better today to make the world a little bit better tomorrow?
Oh my gosh, I love this so much because I am just imagining you get so many people who are just like, I just never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
I never,
exactly. Yeah.
I heard it and to whatever extent I believed the person or I didn't
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, that's really difficult. That's really hard.
Yeah.
Are you just completely moved when you are working with leaders that experience that? I mean, that's got to be pretty
To
emotional
me
for some people.
personally, it has mended my connection with leaders because in the past, due to what I've experienced in the past, let's say that I objectified them. I recently read a book about the anatomy of peace, and it talks about objectifying people as seeing them as objects
Hmm.
instead of as people. But with this particular training, I know that leaders are human, but oftentimes they talk from a space where there is some kind of human disconnect with people. Not
Hmm.
all leaders, but sometimes there is a disconnect. And with this, I'm able to connect the team with each other and understand that the leader also has feelings, yes, and the team members also have feeling. When you connect each other, when you
Yeah.
connect the dots and connect people, and also create an atmosphere where team building can happen,
Yeah.
that's where the magic can happen.
I love this. I have a role play I do in one of my leadership
Mhm.
trainings that there was this element of that that happened that I actually didn't design into it. It sort of happened serendipitously. One of the role plays in my trainings is delivering a difficult performance review. And
Mm,
I give each, it's
yeah.
sort of two actors and an observer. And I give each
Hmm.
actor their backstory, but they don't know
Yeah.
what the other person's backstory is. It's
Hmm.
like a murder mystery party.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be a manager and a direct report. And the manager
Yeah.
is giving the direct report a difficult performance review. They've had some
Yeah.
trouble with their performance. What I didn't predict is that one time I did this in a cross level training group. So there were like
Hmm.
VPs in the group and then
Yeah.
individual contributors that were, in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And what happened was when they paired up, because they're just given like, do you want to be A or B? The
Hmm.
younger person actually took on the role of the manager. And the
Yeah.
seasoned exec took on the role of the person getting the difficult performance review.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
happened was they both walked away. And this is why I always say empathy flows both ways. It's
Yeah.
not just the
Yeah.
responsibility of the leader, but it's helping your
Exactly.
people build empathy so they understand you too,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
And what
exactly.
happened was they were both so impacted by it. And even though it was just, I just gave them some parameters and then they got
Mhm.
creative with how they ran the role play.
Yeah.
The younger person said, "Wow, I didn't realize how hard it is to give someone negative
Yeah,
feedback. Like
exactly.
how difficult that is emotionally,
Yeah.
how it makes you
Yeah.
feel, how whatever." And then the seasoned executive said, "I forgot what it's like to get feedback from someone." Which that's a whole other
Exactly.
issue if they're not getting feedback at the upper levels, but whatever. But they
Well,
both walked.
that's a whole nother thing
Yeah,
because people don't understand that the different stakeholders in this particular scenario, they all want to be connected. They all want to be loved in a way. They all want to be part of the team.
yeah.
And sometimes leaders can feel lonely because
Yes.
of the fact that they distance themselves from the team or they distance themselves so that they can lead. But
Hmm.
we need to be able to connect more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that. What a great, and
Yeah.
it's also making me think of a TEDx talk I saw that really impacted me, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. It was a transgender woman who
Mm,
had actually been in their, prior to their transition, had
yeah.
been a male CEO of a
Yeah.
very Christian organization. I think
Mhm.
Paula Stone. And she talked about how, with great humor and insight and wit, talked about I experienced firsthand when I finally embraced who I am and I began to live my life as the woman that I am. I experienced being shut down in a meeting. I
Yeah.
experienced being talked over. I
Mhm.
experienced,
Yeah.
and she said, I actually never saw that before when I was
Mhm.
in the world as a male leader. And
Yeah.
so she got to experience that herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't, I like, your method of doing it is a little bit less permanent, right? So,
Hmm.
but being able to give people a taste of that, like, no, people are not making this up. This is really
No.
what their experience is, and we need to believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We oftentimes don't believe them because it never happened to us. And there are so many things that we don't know until we know, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that way that I have more empathy for people who have accessibility challenges, I broke my ankle 2 years ago and I'm still recovering from
Oh,
that.
wow.
But being in a wheelchair, being dismissed just because people think that I can't talk, mind you, it's my ankle that is broken,
Right.
not my mouth or my
Right.
eyes or my ears.
Right.
And the other thing is also that I never realized how much power comes from my ankle until you have to open an office door.
Wow.
Wooden doors, they weigh a ton. And I'm just like, here I am somewhat able-bodied, but still feeling that I
Yeah.
need to put pressure on my ankle, that it feels like I'm weightlifting
Yeah.
just to open a door. And
Yeah.
this should not be the case.
Absolutely not. And that's what makes me so angry that,
Mm,
at least as of this recording, they're
yeah.
clawing away some accessibility laws in the US. And I'm like, what people need to function.
Yeah.
They need access to things.
Yeah.
Like this is not about cutting costs. This is about giving
Yeah.
people access so they can contribute and be part of society and be part of an organization. So I'm with you where that could be a whole other episode we do
It's
sometime.
about paralyzing the system at the
Yeah.
moment right now.
Yeah.
Um, but I do have to say, and this is my lens from the outside looking in,
Hmm.
some government practices, let's say that their processes are not ideal as the way that a company does that, right? So oftentimes a company needs to earn their revenue or needs to earn their money by selling their services.
Hmm.
The government then now ahead, they always get money.
Hmm.
They always get money. So no matter what, I'm not justifying what certain people are doing, but I do understand that we need to look into our government processes with a corporate lens into how can we save it and how can we do that in a sustainable way without hurting and dehumanizing people.
I
That's
love
what I
that.
have to say
I
about
love
that.
that. Well, we might have to have another conversation, Vivian, because this has been just delightful. And I'm so
Thank you,
glad you
Maria.
shared your insights. Thank you so much for your time and your gems today that you shared. We will have all your links in the show notes. And before I get to that, I also want to
Mhm.
quickly talk about your Amplify DEI cards because
Ooh.
you have a special offer for our listeners. So tell us what those
Mhm.
are, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well as the code to redeem them for 10% off.
Yes, I mentioned something about people not having the conversations that are necessary, right? So these Amplify DEI cards are conversation starters about creating your own inclusion recipe for your team, or even you can do this among friends or family where you start ignite your own individual journey, right? So there are two card decks, and the code is empathy. So when you use the code empathy and it's valid till end of 2025, you get a 10% discount to activate those conversation starters within the team. Because oftentimes people don't know where to start. And I have given people I've created these card decks very simple. You'll also see a savviness around me playing around with food because some cards contain jalapeno, as in spicy, or paprika, mild. And I
Yeah.
do have a scotch bonnet, as in hot. And some cards also, or the cards also contain intensity, or that was the intensity level, but
Yeah.
category level as in unaware, aware, and action. So they can be play around, used to play, but
Uh-huh.
predominantly it's used to create your own DEI recipe
Right. Well,
for your individual team.
I love that as maybe an action item for our folks listening is check out the cards if you want to just start
Mm,
somewhere with your team or your
yeah,
organization, or like you said, maybe your family and your group of friends.
yeah,
Because sometimes we just need some sort of guardrail around how to start those conversations. So I will
exactly,
put the link in the
exactly.
show notes. And as Vivian mentioned, use code empathy for 10% off until the end of 2025. So as we wrap up, we'll have all your other links in the show notes so people can connect with you. But for anyone on the go, where's a good place that they can find out more about your work?
The easiest would be LinkedIn. So when
Okay.
you look me up, Vivian Acquah, look me up. Not to miss the girl with the purple and pink hair. Then you'll find me there.
You're right. And as I tell all my listeners when folks give their LinkedIn, is make sure you put a note that says that you heard her on this show so she doesn't think you're trying to
Exactly.
sell her something. Vivian, thank you for the time. I really appreciate you.
Likewise, Maria. It was a joy for talking about this particular subject. So looking forward to the future.
I love it. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Please rate and review or share it with a friend or a colleague. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.